I'm Rob Kircher, and welcome to our 1905 cottage. This is the first in a series of ongoing episodes where my wife and I will be restoring this beauty back to what it was in 1905. And unfortunately, it's been languishing for a number of years. So we're going to be dealing with all kinds of issues, from plumbing, electrical, insulation, and of course, all those hidden ones that we're not even aware of. So join us as we go through the various steps of bringing this 1905 beauty back to what it was. Now behind me is the original shed, which dates back again to 1905. Well, over the years, it's had some problems. It's actually sunk into the ground. The floor was completely rotted out. So what we've done up to this point is we've ripped the old floor out, we've jacked it up about 1.5 feet, and now we're adding new joists, and soon we're going to have a new floor in it. So stay with us and watch us as we restore our wonderful shed. As you can see from the background, Mother Nature is doing her thing. Fall is fast approaching, the leaves are beginning to turn, and the breeze off the lake is absolutely delicious. You can't smell it, but I'm going to tell you something, it's about 500 feet from here, and the breeze is invigorating. Folks are still going in, and believe it or not, I'm not one of them, but believe it or not, they're having such a great time frolicking around in the relatively chilly water. In any event, we do hope that you subscribe and that you share and you like us, and stay with us as we bring our 1905 cottage back to what she was in 1905. We had a mid-afternoon rainstorm just to dampen things a little bit, if you know what I mean. But you know what? It didn't dampen our spirit. In fact, what we're able to do is to get all the floor joists in place and ready for the next process. And that's what I want to show you. So come on, let's take a look. We have the one trouble light here that is giving us any source of light at the moment. Here is the configuration. Now you'll notice the spacing between these two joists are far wider than they are over here, and then they get hard for you to see, they get wider again over there. The reason for that is that this is the main entrance point of the shed. So this is going to get all the traffic. So we wanted to beef up our 2x6s, and with the cross joists narrower, so it gets a lot of strength on the traffic. Where on this side, we don't need it that much, and this is going to be having shelving and all kinds of other things that will be hanging and secured to the floor over there. So that's the logic, if you will, of our structure. Now the next thing I want to show you is that what's going to happen in between these. And I'm going to go back outside and we'll talk about that. Now one of my main concerns in putting this floor in is to keep the varmints out. What do I mean by that? Well, you get things like rodents, and you get all kinds of bugs and various types of unwanted elements, if you will, that can get in under the flooring here. So we came up with an idea. Now if we took, basically it's galvanized mesh. It's the same sort of thing that tile people will use to stucco the side of a wall. But if we put mesh at the bottom of each of these spaces and then put our insulation on top of that, then that way the varmints couldn't come up from the bottom. In fact, that mesh is very razor sharp. Okay, this is the galvanized mesh I was talking about. It's 24 inches wide, and it comes in 8-foot lengths. Now again, I'm holding it carefully, but it's sharp, folks. And that's going to be molded on the bottom portion of each of these sections of joists. And then on top of that is where our insulation is going to go. And here is an example of our insulation. And it's got foil on both sides, as you can see. And it's about 1.25 inches thick. Certainly ample enough to insulate the bottom of the floor, and that's what we want to do. So it gets very cold here in upstate New York, and we're not far from the lake. In fact, probably a stone's throw, if you will. So it's going to get a lot of wind and a lot of snow, and we want to have our comfort, if you will, inside the shed during the winter months, and this will do it for us. So we're going to show you how we install that coming up next. And then we fasten it with these guys right here, which is plastic cap nails, and they work quite well. And then on top of that, we carefully fit a section of John's Mansville. This is the two-sided foil insulation, so it's as snug as we can make it. But we also have to take another precaution, and that is to prevent not the varmints like the screen does, but also to keep the spiders and bugs and so on out. And we do that by using this product right here, which is great stuff, and it's the pest block. And what you do, and we already started to do it right here, is you run a bead of foam around the perimeter of the insulation. Even though it's a snug fit, bugs can get into anything, okay? So you really have to be careful. So these we have to do next. And when this is done, folks, we're going to do the last step in the operation, and that is to put OSB board. It's a 3/4 inch tongue and groove on top of it, and that's going to be our decking. And if I get that accomplished by the end of the day today, I'll be a happy boy. Now, along the way, as we produce each episode of our 1905 cottage, you're going to be meeting a lot of our neighbors and friends, very interesting folks who have an interest in our home as great as we do. And so they're lots of fun, and I'm going to tell you something, you're going to have some new friends. You really will. So send us some comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Well, this is my friend Mark. This is the better side of him.
I don't want to be on TV.
So what he's doing now is he's cutting the chicken wire and forming it around the actual 2x4s and some of the joists that we have underneath the shed. Now, you got to love this. This is some of the stones that we took from the old one. The one that Mark has, look at that, it's got a tire iron. So in those days, nobody threw anything away. They had a use for absolutely everything. And we should go back to doing a lot of that stuff. You know, we're using our resources. But this is a great anchor for what we're doing here. And the fun part is going to be able to putting all the dirt back on top of all this, and landscaping around here.
Hopefully, chemically that won't do anything to the...
Mark is not only a good Samaritan, but he's also my neighbor, and just an all-around great guy.
Oh,
always the first to ask if he can do something, and I really appreciate his enthusiasm about projects we do together, and as well as things that he does with his family. Just a super guy.
I don't believe the age that he told me. I think he's about 40 years younger. He can run circles around me, and I'm in my 60s, so I'm very impressed with his enthusiasm and also his stamina. It just blows me away. But we really appreciate Barb and Rob coming into the neighborhood. They're willing to put their effort and their money into making this house better. I mean, it's a cottage, so cottages take a lot of work, and everybody appreciates that.
My wife Barb and I have restored 2 homes prior to our 1905 cottage. We restored a home in a little hamlet about 20 miles east of here called Pulteneyville. It's also on Lake Ontario, and that was an amazing home. It was part of the Underground Railroad. And then when we moved to Florida, we renovated and restored that home as well. But this by far, I think, is the one closest to our heart. We absolutely love it, and it's got so much character and quirkiness, if you will, that it's a blast to work on. It really is. But it definitely is not for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of work to bring this baby back to what it was in 1905.
What do I do? I'm semi-retired. Worked at Kodak for 16 years, been in the dental business. I'm a high school boys basketball official. I refereed college for 7 years for men's basketball. Enjoying Forest Lawn. These houses, you have a urge to put your tool belt on when you walk in the front door because there's things that need to be done, and things are never done, as you know, owning a home. But really enjoy the neighborhood. When we first moved here in 1996, I counted 27 kids at the bus stop. Now I count 27 dogs, as you know, because you have some on both sides of you. But great neighborhood, great neighbors. They do stuff for the kids and also for the adults.
Our 1905 cottage actually began life in the late 1880s as a mere tent on a wooden platform. And then through a series of additions, it evolved into the house that we know today. In 1905, Theodore Roosevelt, became the youngest president we ever had. At age 43, he brought strong progressive reform and foreign policy to the United States. He had a slogan, it's well known, walk slowly and carry a big stick. Well, this morning I am stripping the old door that was on the woodshed, and it's a beautiful old door. However, it had about 5 or 6 layers of old paint on it, and some great antique hardware, so I want to keep all that. And right now I'm just cutting it down so we can get to the point where we have just a raw wood, if you will, and then we're going to prime it, and then we'll decide what kind of color we're going to put on it, and then we'll install it on the shed. So stay with us. Well, good morning. Before the rains came late yesterday afternoon, I did manage to get all the layers of paint off the old door and put it in place. Actually, right now it's only hanging by one hinge, so I have to put the second hinge on and some additional hardware, and I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. So I'll take you inside in just a few minutes. But the other thing I wanted to tell you is that today is going to be a very special day for us because our plumber is coming, and we have lots of things for him to do, so you want to stick around for that. But right now, let's go inside and I'll show you how I'm going to finish off the hardware, if you will, on this old door. Barb and I wake up every morning knowing how lucky we are to have the opportunity of owning our 1905 cottage. A home of this historical significance rarely comes on the market, and when it does, it's grabbed up very, very quickly. So it's just a pleasure working on it. It's a pleasure bringing it back to its heyday, if you will, in 1905. Okay, as I mentioned before, this old door is absolutely fantastic, folks. It's not only is the hardware incredible, but it's also so ingeniously designed. I just absolutely love it. I'm going to open up these wing nuts over here, and just to give you a sense for it. Now this door swings open, so in the summertime you can pull this up, they're pinned, and you can replace this with a screen. In the wintertime, you just close that off. So I'm in a process right now of putting a primer on this, and I have to fix these 2 panes that are missing at the bottom. But folks, I'm just so happy and delighted with the way this door has turned out, because we've been able to reclaim it and restore it back to what it was like in 1905. Coming up in episode 2, our plumber, Scott Guilfoyle, will be paying us a visit for the first time. He'll be working on our upstairs bathroom. Meanwhile, our painter will continue to reglaze and paint all of our windows. And I'll be learning about carpenter ants. Carpenter ants! All that plus many more things which I think you're really going to enjoy is coming up in episode 2. So watch for it and don't miss it.